Perfect. Sophia, I hand over to you.
Okay. Is
Yeah.
everybody on mute and cameras off?
Yep. I'm putting people on mute also as it pops up.
Okay, thanks. So welcome everybody. 2025, the new year. This is our first lesson for the year, and it is basically, as Nick stated before, ECD in a nutshell, understanding the ECD space. All right, so we're going to lightly touch on different subjects, and as the weeks go on and as the months go on, we dwell more into depth on each of these topics that are stated here today. All right, so before wasting any time, we're going to go into our next page. All right, so as with everything else in life, when we start off with something, we need to learn, we need to know what it is we're doing, right? What are the aims? What are the objectives? So the objectives of this lesson today is defining early childhood development, right? We have to be able to explain to people who do not know what early childhood development is. Number two, we have to describe characteristics common to toddlers. So so if you come into the space and you see something that is abnormal to you, you need to check your notes first and ensure that it is actually normal, right? Children speaking, children talking, children crying, children screaming are all normal behaviors of children who are not constructively occupied. All right. Number three, we say describe characteristics common to preschool children. So you will see that there's a big difference between the toddlers and the infants. That is any human being from 0 to about 5 years old. And then there's a big difference between them and the preschoolers, the grade R children. That's what we're speaking about, right? And we also discuss the developmental tasks of early childhood development, meaning according to the child's age, he is supposed to be able to do certain things. If that is not in place, ourselves as ECD practitioners, we work on exercises and on initiatives to strengthen the child in that area that he may be lacking. Then the last objective is that we must list 3 factors that aid in the development of language skills, that help children develop language skills. So a lot of times we have chaos in our class because the child doesn't have the proper vocabulary to express himself. They need to learn words to express themselves. This is one of the biggest and main objectives of ECD programs. Any ECD program you go to, it doesn't matter what the language of instruction is. If the child doesn't have a good vocabulary, he is not able to express himself, he becomes frustrated, he becomes angry, he fights with you, he fights with the other children, and your class is basically a circus. All right, so very, very important. We go straight into our next slide now. Slide masters, what's happening? There we
I've
go.
already changed the slide. I think there's a bit of a delay.
Okay. So we say number 7, continuing in our objectives and our aims of this lesson today, of understanding the ECD space. We say at number 7, we describe the role of physical activity in maintaining health. Why is it important for that child to be able to play on a jungle gym, hit a ball with a racket, develop hand-eye foot coordination, so on and so forth. Number 8, we describe the characteristics, play, and appropriate toys for a toddler and a preschool child. So remember again, we're saying there's a difference between the 0 to 4 or 5 and the one that is doing grade R. Priscilla, I see your hand is up. Have you got a question? Okay, guys, if you're too shy to speak up, you can always pop your question in the question box, and we will try to answer it as we go along. All right. Number 9, list 3 safety risks common to early childhood years. So that we're also going to delve into a little bit more. There's a lot of things that seem simple and logical to us as adults, but for children, they do not know that these things pose a danger to their health, right? And then number 10, we discuss the principles of guidance and discipline for children during the early childhood years. We can go on to the next slide. But just to touch more on point number 10, remember we have come into a democracy and many rules have been into place. Corporal punishment, physically hurting a child to punish him or to teach him a lesson, has been outruled and it's a criminal offense. So please, please, teachers, do not ever do anything to physically hurt a child in order for that child to be punished. We do not punish children. We positively discipline children. All right. So we need to find a way. I know it's difficult, but we need to find a way to positively discipline the child. I remember thinking as a child, because I grew up in those years where they used to whack us, parents, teachers, any elder in the family, in the community used to just whack children. And I remember at that young age, I promise you, I remember asking my grandmother that just gave me a good hiding, Ma, can I ask you a question? And she's like, you got a nerve. What's the question anyway? I'm like, why would you assume that if you're hitting my body with a belt, that I am going to register what my brain is going to register what you are trying me to register? Because all I'm concentrating now on is how sore the shots you gave me are here, and I'm busy rubbing the shots. Nothing is penetrating my brain. So children can think. Some of them, like myself, are very expressive. Others do not have the vocabulary or the confidence to express themselves. But over time, it has been proven by science that children learn better through positive methods of discipline rather than ones that involve inflicting bodily harm, involve disgrace, involve sitting children in corners to keep quiet. I don't know. Those who are also from the old school will remember we used to do things like hold our ears and go up and down. I'm sure there was some physical benefits in that, in a fitness way, maybe for exercise. But at that moment in time, with the entire class looking at you, laughing at you, it wasn't an encouragement for you to do better. So remember, always discipline must be guided in such a way that it encourages the child to want to do better. It has to be a positive initiative, right? Okay, so now key terms for today's lesson are words such as age appropriate toys. You cannot give a 2-year-old child a 100-piece puzzle. It's just not going to happen. The child's probably going to eat half of the puzzle. You're going to scream, they're going to scream, everybody's going to go crazy. So we need to learn the different age appropriate materials according to the children. Some children are a little faster than other children, but they are usually marked on the toys and on the equipment from which age to which age the child is supposed to be able to do certain things, right? Corporal punishment, we spoke about that. Dental caries, that refers to children having their feeding bottles or their dummies or their pacifiers in the mouth all the time. It rots their teeth like you can't believe it. All right. So you'll see a lot of children have this oral fixation where they constantly want something to be sucking on something all the time, right? So as educators, we are 5 steps ahead. So we try to beg and plead with our board of governors or with our principal to have healthy snacks on hand all the time. So when you see children are seeking comfort through oral fixation, putting things in their mouth, sucking on things or whatever. We give them healthy options such as fruits or such as sugar-free candy, stuff like that. All right. Then early childhood, expressive language, we spoke about that. Immunity, that is something that is very important. If you are running a legit organization, a legit ECD, you will know that part of the paperwork at enrollment involves the child's clinic card. Now, we are not health professionals, but we need to be aware of the different immunization schedules that are required in South African law. And we need to be able to pick up. We're not just making copies of all of these things to keep them there. We need to be able to pick up where a child has missed an immunization, write a letter to the parent to bring it to their attention, keep a record of that, wait for the parent's response, because people do have a right to refuse immunity, right? Immunization. So too do we have a right of admission that if a child is not immunized according to South African law and we feel that it is a risk to other children, we can then deny admission to that child, which I don't advise, but to each its own, right? Parallel play. Our next point speaks about playing alongside other children. Punsa grip that we're going to delve into a lot with regards to fine motor skills development, where children play with a lot of manipulative toys, things such as Play-Doh, squeezing balls, etc., etc. Right? The preschool phase, that is for the grade R people that are basically seen as the seniors in the ECD setting. And we speak about receptive language. A child must be able to understand what you are saying to them. If they do not understand, then you try to say it in their language and then you repeat it again in the medium of instruction of your center, which most of the time is English, right? Time out, basically, that is, you see the child is fed up, he's frustrated, he is not having a good time, you distract him, you let him go for a walk, you ask him if he wants to drink some water, let him cool down or something like that, and you just basically distract him from the tantrum that he's about to have or the outburst that he's about to have, right? And the toddler phase, we will touch on more as well. That is not to 4 years or 5 years old. All right. Right, more on definitions, early childhood, toddler phase, preschool phase. We will speak about it. It's about infancy, children that are tiny, anything from 0 to 2 years old. Toddler phase will then be 3 to 4 years old, and preschool phase will be the 5 to 6 year old guys. So that I think is it for definitions. Are there any questions in the chat box? Nope. All right. So that means we carry on with our next slide. Okay. And this slide speaks about developmental tasks of early childhood development. Guys, remember, if I'm reading too fast and you don't understand, this lesson is being recorded as stated in the beginning, and it can be and you can access it via the portal. All right, acquiring receptive language and expressive language. It's important for you to speak to children and teach them vocabulary of different words. In our classroom, we have labels everywhere that basically indoctrinates into the child's brain that items and objects and people, even name tags, have names. And so children will become curious and they will ask you, what is that word? Then you ask them what the object is, and they will tell you it's a table. Then you say, very well. So that word says table. All right. Also, some of the tasks in early childhood development is the social interaction skills. So this is basically where they play alongside others or they are part of a group and they have to communicate with each other. A lot of children are only children or are still children and they come from a house where they get everything that they want on demand. But in a preschool class, everybody has to have a fair chance to play with whatever it is they need to So we can set up rules such as 5 minutes in every corner, or we can set up rules and say 2 people will play together on this puzzle, so that they learn to speak to each other, so that they learn to ask each other questions. They can even argue in a decent way. That also is healthy and important. They can debate with each other, all right? And then almost lastly, we speak about mastering self-control in areas such as toilet training. So a lot of children, especially the ones not in the grade R section, will come to us and they will not be potty trained. They will not be toilet trained, right? So we need to um, work our way around that, be aware of the children who are going through the phase of potty training, and be aware of the children who are on nappies. So, an example of that would be that you know that this child just had juice about a half an hour ago and he's on a nappy, but he's about to go into potty training. You take him to the toilet and allow him to do his business without soiling the nappy, and you give him a good hand of applause for being a good boy. And so he starts to understand that when my bladder or this part of my body feels a certain way, it means I need to go to toilet. All right. And then lastly, tasks of early childhood development, we say they begin to develop self-image and a sense of autonomy. Because remember, for a very long time, the child does not see himself as separate from his primary caregiver. In this case now, when he comes to school and he's going to be spending most of his time with you, you will find that some children attach themselves to you in a very unhealthy way, that you cannot give attention to other children or go and do other tasks. All right. So we need to be able to balance that well without offending the child or chasing them away from you or swearing at them or anything like that. It's all normal. Some children have anxiety of being alone. Some children have detachment issues. We need to be able to pick up on that and maybe just give them a pinch or two uh, of a little more attention, so that they understand that you are aware of their presence and you're not running away or going anywhere. All right, now we speak about physiological changes in the children. And some of those changes are walking, fontanelles, weight gain, pincer grip, hearing, fine motor skills, and toilet training. We've spoken about all of this besides fontanelles. Nick, if you're around, or Pedro, can you
Yeah,
just
yeah.
elaborate a little bit on fontanelles? I'm not familiar with that.
All right. So a fontanelle is a physiological change that happens with babies in that when you're born, your skull is not actually fully formed yet. It is not a solid piece as such yet. The bones still have to fuse into each other.
Mm.
And there are 4 points of your skull which have to fuse
Mm-hmm.
together. And those are described as fontanelles. So usually it happens at about 18 months old that your bones start actually fusing together. But then by the time you're 5, everybody's fontanelles are completely fused. And it's quite important to know that for ECD, when you're looking at exercises, how you're carrying children, what we expect from head control and head movement, that's all fontanelle based.
So we're speaking about the skull here, right?
The skull. So it's the 4 points of the skull that have not yet fully fused. So like when you give birth to a baby, the baby's head is actually
Yeah.
formed and shaped by the birthing process.
Yeah. I just experienced it recently, but yeah, quite traumatic. But anyway, yeah, so that's why I suppose there's big emphasis on not dropping children on their heads, because the fontanelles are not completely formed and it might actually, include and so on.
Yeah, exactly that. I just want to see where's the noise coming from. Exactly that. And it's things such as how you hold the baby's head, the support you provide to the baby's head, and all of that. That's quite important in this respect. Sophia, I hand over to you.
Awesome. Awesome. Thanks for that, Nick. All right, so there we have it, the physiological changes. You can see from the word physiological that it's got to do with the physical or the physique of the child. All of these are important things that need to be worked on as a ECD educator together with the child and the parent, so that by the time the child goes to school, he has fully mastered these skills that he's going to definitely need in grade R, because the grade R teacher does not have time to do all of this. All right. So that is very important for us to focus on as we are working with our children from day to day. All right. Next slide, please. Critical thinking question 1. Why is it important to identify readiness cues in a child before the initiation of toilet training? The answer to that? Anybody? Nick,
Sophia,
help us
tell
out.
us.
Help us out.
All right. So what the question is basically asking you is, it's asking you to think of ECD as a set of steps rather than a set of conclusions, right? And what we're trying to work out here is, I want you to think for yourself.
Okay.
How do you know that a child is ready to be toilet trained? Because we speak about toilet training, but how do you know that a child is ready to be toilet trained? And within toilet training, what cues are you picking up? So what are the steps towards toilet training before the child even starts toilet training? What needs to be in place? That's basically what the question is asking.
All right. So I would say something like, you see the child holding the area, and he crosses his legs and he's trying, I don't know, not to make a mess.
Yeah, 100%.
All right.
100%. So that's identifying
Okay.
readiness for it. Maybe the child, if you go back a step before that, even maybe the child starts expressing interest as to what's happening in the bathroom. What
Yeah.
is my nappy? What is happening?
Awesome.
Yeah, and that's sort of cues for you that it's time to start toilet training. And what's important there is to understand that we take toilet training, for example, very simplistic, like we take handwriting. We think, oh, we teach the child to write, but there's actually a lot of steps that go before it that tell you that it's time to now learn how to write. And if we can get ECD teachers thinking like that, instead of starting at Z because the child's at Z, we start at A and we start building up towards something.
Excellent. All right. Thanks, Nick. All right. So now we speak a little bit about nutrition, guys. Some children are fed by adults whose eating habits may be based on ethnic, cultural, folklore, or fad conceptions. So, for example, in a Muslim household, children, you will find that those children eat everything with their hands. If you go maybe to white households, you will find children asking for a spoon or a knife and a fork. In the black culture, you will see children usually forming their pap into little balls and eating it in that way, right? There's no right and wrong way. We need to understand these different cultures and try to accommodate these children in the different cultures. And also, it gives an opportunity to children to ask the other children, why do you do that? Or how do you do that? And so they learn about other cultures, other traditions, in not only matters of eating, but many other different things also that we will discuss as the weeks go on. All right. Secondly, we say adequate nutrition is essential for optimal physical and mental development in young children. And that's why you will find in many ECD settings, especially in the rural areas, like where I am, we have a nutritional program in place. There's a separate kitchen for the ECD section where we cook for them meals according to their needs. All right. So it includes a lot of vegetables, it includes a lot of salads. Yes, there's protein in there, there's starch in there as well, and we try to make it look appealing to the child. All right, so if they're going to be having apple as a snack, what we'd usually do is we would drizzle a little brown sugar, very little brown sugar, and some cinnamon on there. Sometimes we get a good response, sometimes we don't get a good response. So the next time around, we try something else. All right. So you just keep on trying different things. But remember, we need to focus on it being healthy. We cannot be serving hot dogs and chips and burgers and fries and all of these things to children in our setting. In other more affluent areas, you will find parents send lunch boxes, and the teachers are quite cute in those areas. They actually have a set out thing of what the child is allowed to have in their lunch box and what they don't allow. So they don't allow, for example, fizzy drinks. They don't allow packets of Simba chips. They prefer that you cut up some carrots and that you have brown bread instead of white bread, etc., etc. And lastly, we say eating habits are developed during the early childhood years. So if you do not accustom the children to these healthy things and you do not educate the parents of the children in your center on healthy alternatives or healthier ways of cooking what they already have, instead of drowning it in oil, they rather steam it, for example. You will be helping their child to gain maximum nutritional benefit. And if the child has that, he's gonna have your full attention, you're gonna have his full attention, and it's a win-win situation either way. All right. So that's it for nutrition. Our next slide speaks about what? Oh goodness, another critical thinking question. What are the reasons for teachers and parents to read food labels as a way to promote nutritional and dental health? I'm going to go to the class now and I'm going to ask anybody who wants to answer that question to put your hand up. I see we have 23 people. Let's see who answers first. That person will get a prize from Nick to the value of unknown rands. Anybody? The first person that comes on my radar is Elefonsina. Elefonsina, can you hear us? Would you like to answer the question? No response. Bonolo Tsotsetsi. No response. Brittany Frislar. Last one. Going once, going twice.
Hi.
All right. Brittany ran away.
Yes, we have a person.
Who's there? Sianga.
Hello. For
Hi,
me,
Sianga.
hello. For me, I think it's to prevent children from getting diarrhea. That's why we have to educate parents on nutrition and how to feed the children healthy food.
Very good, very good. I'll take that. I'll take that. Thanks for having the guts, Sianda. So, yes, Sianda is correct. We need to also know this, when she speaks about diarrhea, something popped into my head about allergies. We need to ensure that we have that on our intake forms if the children are allergic to certain types of food, especially if we are providing food. Not in all centers do they provide food, but in the centers that we do provide food, we need to ensure that we are aware. I actually have our teachers put up the allergy charts in their classes so that it gets drilled to their brain subconsciously every time they look at it, and immediately they can spot a child that is eating something that is not supposed to be eating, especially when they are sharing with each other, right? And also the reason for reading the food labels is to identify preservatives and colorants and all of these things that are detrimental to the children's health, right? To the child's nutrition. There's various things that they put in food as preservatives to make it last long, and it's just a whole mess, right? So we're always going to try to encourage nutritional education with our children and with our parents. In fact, I think it should be in your first meeting when you have a parents meeting. Do a whole printout, one page full, not too much information about nutritional food and how it will help your child to have a bright mind and learn easy and quicker, and hopefully we'll have better results altogether. All right.
I see
Let's see
Bonolo
our
had her
next.
hand up.
Okay, Bonolo, you can answer if you'd like to. Okay, whenever you're ready, Bonolo, you can answer. We can go to the next slide. Physio-social development. Okay, so we find all these fancy terms and we just start panicking and we want to close the portal and everything. But when we come across that, we must always try to break down the word. So the first one is psycho. Sorry, I said physio. Psycho. So psycho not only refers to mad people, it refers to the mind, the brain, the thinking, and social obviously refers to interaction with others. So psychosocial will be your mental interaction capabilities with others, whether that is with the friends in your class, whether that is with the teachers, whether that is with the primary caregivers, with the cleaners, whatever the case may be, right? Tasks and considerations include language and communication skills and development. Again, we say we need to enhance that child's vocabulary. We need to teach them new words. We need to teach them simple etiquettes like greeting when you come into a classroom, or saying please if you want something, thank you if you have received it, excuse me, pardon me, all of those type of things, right? And then also, in as far as cognitive development goes, that has got to do with the brain and the child's ability to think and to decipher for themselves according to their age. Obviously, we're not looking for Einsteins, we are looking within the age range, right? And then moral development is important. That's when we teach the child um, ethics and values and what's ugly manners and what's courtesy and so on and so forth. Psychosocial development also includes sexuality, and that is the child being aware of his gender, the child being aware of not maybe being restricted to only play with dolls because the child is a girl, or only playing with cars because the child is a boy. So, regardless of any sexuality that the child may be, the child is allowed to explore any and every means of uh, toys of play, etc., etc. Right? Physical activity that has got to do with gross motor skills development that happens a lot in the beginning of the year in South Africa, where they have the sports, and for the rest of the year they forget it. In the ECD world, we don't forget it. Every day there's outside time. We're playing with bean bags, we're playing with hoops, we are on the jungle gym, we are skipping, we are playing hopscotch, we're moving all the time, right? Physical activity goes hand in hand with gross motor skills and large muscle development. All right. And then obviously the normal day to day play and care. So, one of the things that I just came up with yesterday when I went into one of my ECD classes, a parent pitched the child, and the child's face was a mess because she was having a snack before she left. So I had a talk with our teaching assistant, who's the only one there when the children are leaving. And I said to her, I need you to remind me to write a letter for every parent to put a face cloth or wet wipes in the child's bag. If possible, they put a little bit of hand cream because some children are allergic to certain things, a little bit of hand cream in there, and maybe a brush so that you can just neaten up the child before the child leaves. After a while, the child will automatically adopt that themselves, that they know they're going to leave now. Even when they go home and they've been told they're going out, they won't just run out like dirty little monkeys. They'll neaten themselves up, right? So self care is very, very important. All right, so that's it for psychosocial development, I hope. Yes. We go on now to language development and communication skills. And there's a difference between toddlers and preschool age children. Okay. So with toddlers in language development, we repeat a lot of the time to them. Bring the bottle, bring the bottle. this is a bottle, and we do a lot of picture cards. We have conversations about painting. We talk about the different colors in the painting. We talk about big and small, so on and so forth. And when it comes to the grade R's, we obviously expand on that, right? Now we speak about the toddler. We say they need to develop receptive language before expressive language, right? So receptive means they need to be able to understand instructions. They need to be able to receive information before he can do expressive language. That is when he gives you feedback after you have given him an instruction, um, or you have asked him a question. That is receptive. He's receiving that information. And then when he's answering you, that is expressive language. He's telling you what you he's giving you the answer to what you wanted, or he is following the instruction that you had given him, right? First, clear word and response to simple commands by age 1. So this is very important. And I did it in one of the challenges. I was with a group of Victoria educators, and I gave them a challenge to do certain tasks, and I saw that in the videos that they sent me, to rate them, the teachers were giving 1 and 2-year-old children 5 instructions in one sentence. Right? For a 1-year-old child, you will not do that. We usually do it by age, one instruction at a time. When the child finishes that instruction, he looks at you, that's your cue now to give him the next instruction. Also, very, very important, we do not give instructions while the child is busy with a task. If you give the instruction, you say go, the child does the task, he finishes the task, he looks at you, it's your cue now to give him the next instruction. As the child ages, you can then give 2 instructions at a time, 3 instructions at a time, and so on and so forth. Some children are faster than others. As you go on and as you learn the children, especially by the end of term 1, you will be able to know which of the children can handle more than 1 instruction, or only 2 instructions, or 5 instructions at a time. All right. By the age of 15 months, we say the child should be able to speak 6 words, and then 15 months he should be able to speak 6 words, yes. And then we say by 19 months he should be able to speak 5 words. So 19 months would be like just over 1.5 years. He should be able to speak 15 words, but I promise you they will surprise you with much more. In the Montessori philosophy, we call that age between 18 months and 2 years old explosion into language, because all of a sudden they go from speaking 15 words to 100 words to 115 words, and they start stringing sentences along. Now, it's important for us to understand that this is basically a guideline and it's milestones. It's not compulsory that the child must. If the child only knows 10 words and not the 15 words, it's not a train smash. The train smash happens if that child cannot even say 5 words. You need to look into that. You need to speak to the parent. You need to encourage the parent to speak to the child more often. Look up exercises, send it on the parent group, and encourage them to speak to the child more, because you will find lots of parents regard children as insignificant beings. They must be not seen and not heard and all of these type of things. We want to change that. We want them to understand that children are receptive and that they are absorbent of language at a very young age, and they can actually grasp the language much easier, especially new languages, much easier than adults can. Right? So even if it's a Zulu speaking child that goes into a medium English medium school, that child should be able to, by the age of 2 years old, be able to speak English according to his age. All right. I love the language series. I don't like the mathematics series. I'm sure lots of you can what's the word I'm looking for? Lots of you can relate to that, because we were basically taught mathematics in a very, very cruel way. All right, we can go on to the next slide. Somebody mentioned there preventing tooth decay and gingivital diseases. Okay, yeah, that's got to do with caries. All right. So on that point, I just want to say quickly, remember we spoke about bottles and feeding cups and dummies and all of those things. Trying to wean the children off of that as soon as possible is going to avoid caries. And also, as the person mentioned, the gingivitis, which are all diseases in the mouth. Right. Now we're going to speak about the preschooler. Right. The big shots at the ECD center. Their language development occurs very rapidly. A 5-year-old has a vocabulary that exceeds 2,000 words, and speech development is a reflection of mental and emotional development. So, what that basically means, if that child is not in a good space mentally, if that child is being abused at home, his speech will be delayed. And we need to ensure that we pick up on this and we try to investigate it within our means. So, a lot of the times, it's not necessary to call in a speech and audio therapist, but if you feel that it is necessary, you communicate with your head of department, your HOD, or your principal. You have a meeting with them that you've seen this now over a long period of time. You've spoken to the parents, you've done some certain interventions, then perhaps they will call in a speech and audio therapist. Maybe the child has a hearing problem and that's why he can't uh, speak the words that is being said to him all the time. Or worst case scenario, the child is being abused and he is just all in himself. He cannot open up. He's just damaged and hurt, right? God forbid. Right, now we speak about cognitive development, and that has got to do with your cleverness, your brains, your thinking powers, etc., etc. Toddlers begin to use words to express ideas and solve problems. A lot of the times, the first word of the toddler is not mama and papa. I promise you, it's usually no. Everything is no. You know why? Because they're being told all the time no. When they open up the cupboard and they want to explore what is in mommy's Tupperware cupboard, they're being told no. So you will hear a lot of times they use the word no, right? Preschoolers then, we say their thinking involves Piaget's pre-operational or pre-logical characteristics. That is very high words. I'm going to ask Nick to just elaborate on that for us a little bit.
Sorry, so what this means is basically if you have a simple task in front of a child who's very young, let's say starting at the ECD center, right? And you say, we are going to color in a picture, all right? You need to do the pre-operational thinking for that child. You need to have the crayons out. You need to give the crayon to the child. You need to show them where they're going to color in and where they're going to apply the color. As soon as a child enters preschool, we can assume that when you say we're going to color in, they already can do the pre-thinking before the task. So they can grab a pencil and they can apply it, knowing that they must first get the pencil. Yeah.
Okay, nice. Actually, very simple when you say it like that. All right, so I hope everybody got that one. It basically says that you start from right from the beginning, especially when you see a child is lost and everybody's doing things and the child is not doing things. You start right from the beginning. You don't start screaming at the child. What's wrong with you? Can't you see everybody's doing? He doesn't know. He wasn't ever in a ECD setting, right? So try always to be gentle, firm, but gentle, all right? And then with regards to cognitive development, we also say that children gradually learn through cause and effect to solve problems, on how to solve problems. So we always need to have things around us where we can demonstrate cause and effect. So I like to do the thingy with the Eno or the Alka-Fizz, and I throw water in there and then it creates bubbles. That is more for the preschoolers, right? For the small ones, you can do simple things like dipping the tissue into the pink liquid and then taking it out so the child sees now that it, because you dipped it in the pink water, the result thereof is that the tissue turned pink. And then you invite the child to come and try the same so that the child sees that for every action there's a reaction. For every cause there's an effect. Right. And then we say lastly, major task for preschoolers is to learn impulse control. So they can get really crazy and demanding and want what they want, when they want, how they want it. You, me, us as educators, we need to make them understand that that is not how the world works. All right. Maybe at home you get that right because you're the baby there or you're the only child there or whatever. But if you go into the world, you need to be able to learn to give, to ask, to take, to help, to wait for a turn, etc. etc. Critical thinking question 3. Nick, how many slides do we have left?
Well, we're going to stop after this question and then we'll open up the floor to people who have
Okay.
issues with Portal and stuff, because the purpose of this is to provide like a width, a depth, and a breadth of how we're going, so that, and I'll summarize that in a minute. So we're going to
Okay.
stop after this and then we'll continue with moral. Let me just quickly go through it. We'll continue with moral, discipline, sexuality, physical play, daycare, safety, and accident next time. All right.
Next time. Okay. So
Yeah.
critical question 4. 3. Okay. In
Three.
what instances would a parent need to intervene during a temper tantrum? Okay, let's see. Class, who appears on my list? Ammonia Radebe. Ammonia, would you like to give it a try? In which instances would a parent intervene in temper tantrums? It's a bit of a tongue twister. Okay. Irene, Jade, Janani, Monet, anybody like to chip in, give their 5 cents? There's no right and wrong answers. We just want to know that you guys are engaging and listening with us and thinking also as we are going along. I honestly don't know at which point the parent would intervene. I would assume, and Nick can correct me, I would assume it would be when the child causes harm to himself, others, or the property of the preschool.
Yeah, so
Nick,
this
what do
question
you
is,
say?
yes, this question is asking you to think about things that we take for granted. So a temper tantrum, as an ECD practitioner, you would
Yeah.
approach a temper tantrum and a meltdown very differently from a parent, right? So being a parent doesn't necessarily make you ECD qualified, and that's the point of this question, because as an ECD practitioner, you'll be able to pull off things such as, is the child understimulated or overstimulated? Is there noise in the around the child that he can't manage? Has the child not developed emotionally well enough to say that this frustrates me and I don't know what to do, and therefore they start hitting stuff or kicking stuff, or biting is very common in very, very young children, right? So the idea of when to intervene is very flexible. It's more the idea of like, what is a temper tantrum for an ECD practitioner? Is it the same as what a parent's temper tantrum is? And where do you draw the line? So a lot of people would say when they hurt themselves or others. I would say you intervene when you see that it's a communicative problem. All right. So the child is actually trying to communicate, and you take that moment and you teach the child then to word their need differently. The goal of this is again to show that an ECD practitioner is actually not just an ECD practitioner. Like, you don't just do early childhood development. You're touching on all these different schools of thought, all these different types of ideas, where something like food is not just food. It's a set of things that the child needs for nourishment, for growth, for development. A temper tantrum isn't just a child being naughty. We don't use the word naughty, for example, right? It could be a response to the environment. And sort of to stretch our students out a little bit to start thinking more critically about it. Like, what is this thing? So that we don't teach the way we were taught.
What's behind it? What's
Yeah,
behind it?
what's
Yeah.
behind it? What's the
Like
foundation to it? Yeah.
you psychologists usually say it's a cry for help, right?
Yeah, yeah. Usually, so no one chooses to hurt themselves or to have a meltdown, right? Very, very, very few people would choose that as a response if there were another way, right? But what you do need is you
Mm-hmm.
need somebody to guide you through that process to get out of it. And also, if the student had to think, when were you last frustrated that you just wanted to kick something, right? And then go into it and go,
Mm-hmm.
wait, what was it? Was it because I felt stuck? Was it because I didn't have the vocab? Was it because I felt nobody was listening to me? What is behind that so that you can start
Oh,
understanding children as developmental beings rather than just active
I was
beings?
hungry.
Yeah, I was hungry. Like a lot of people forget hunger, temperature, all of these things can really make you very, very, very moody. I see Noko has raised their hand. Noko, would you like to provide some input? I'm liking your comments so far. You have to unmute yourself, Noko.
I think this is a very
Okay.
beautiful, critical question, actually, right?
Yeah, it is. It
Um,
is. And it's because we want our ECD practitioners to be a bit deeper. I see Janani says that the parent may intervene when the child doesn't stop with his or her temper tantrum. So, Janani, the question I'd ask you then is, how do you measure that? When is enough of it?
mm,
Do you time it or what? And Prince said, when they realize the child is not aware of what they are doing. The same thing there is touching on that. So Prince has started touching on that idea of like, there needs to be an awareness of the child's surroundings before continuing. So I think we're getting onto the
mm,
right track. These questions look difficult, but what they're asking you to do is to stretch your thinking a little bit.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, from personal experience, children with ADHD, neurodivergency problems, and stuff like that, lose focus and concentration very easily, or they hyper focus. And so when you interject during that hyper focus time of this, they can actually have a pretty bad burst out, and the rest of everybody else would see it as something totally unnecessary, like that was uncalled for. But if you understand this, or the parent informs you of this, I suppose you would be ready and you would be able to address that matter um, more efficiently than just assume like this child is just full of crap. You know what I'm saying? So yeah,
Yeah, 100%,
very, very
100%. And
vast.
it's contextual learning. That's what it is. It's learning of the child in context.
Contextual, context.
Yeah.
I like
So
it.
once we
I
start
like
seeing
it.
the child in context, we actually see it's a lot easier for us. I think we get stuck on lists, we get stuck on what a child is, but if you see them in context, then it's
Mm,
very, very, very different.
all right.
Simone said, in
From
my experience, I try and distract the child. Right? Yeah, 100%. So again, I would ask to that is when do you know that it's distraction and when do you know it's communication? Those are quite important to also
Yeah.
understand. The difference between distraction, which is helpful, 100%, Simone, it's 100% helpful, but other times there's communication that needs to happen. Sophia, would you like me to wrap up from here?
Yes, please do.
All right, perfect. So, ladies and gentlemen, what we've done today is we've sort of started you on the path of thinking, what is ECD, right? That it's more than a crash, and that the ECD practitioner is an expert in many fields, not just one, right? They are nutritionally experts. They are up to scratch with immunization. They know what development is. They know what physical development is. They know what cognitive development is, right? And to start thinking of how these all come together. This is a very important part of your learning. And we see this a lot in the exams that people write, right? Our students that do the best are the ones that can integrate different concepts and who actually think about concepts within their classroom. I could do a whole lesson for you on how to create toys. But if you don't understand the purpose of the toy, the goal of the toy, and the principles behind play, you wouldn't understand what the point is of the toy. right? Then why even have a toy in your
Good
classroom?
value.
And we're trying to, we're trying to get people to be more conscientious teachers also, contextual and conscientious. You are consciously deciding to do this because you know it benefits the child and to feel confident within that. Sophia, thank you very much for taking us through that. I'm going to give people 2 minutes of attention quickly. Is there anybody who has a question with what they're studying with right now that they're stuck and they want me to clarify? It's quite important that I assist you, and this is the opportunity to say it. Put your hand up, type it in the chat box so that I can answer your question, but also we can help others who might be struggling. I'm giving us a few minutes for this because we have a social work class coming up, which is actually about to start in 15 minutes. And I would like us to be on top of it. So if anybody has a question, now's your chance.
Noko's hand is up.
Noko, can you unmute
Noko, you
yourself?
can unmute yourself.
And you can ask me a question.
Or maybe Noko's just saying hello.
Yeah, maybe she's saying hello. Okay. I see there's a new chat. Let's see. SP Unit 2, I don't see the upload link for the assignment. Okay, Tammy, I've made a note of that. Let me take a look at what's happening. Remember, you can also email your assignments to the following address, and I will put it now in the chat box. Yeah, that's it. All right, and that will help you if you get stuck, but I'll take a look at it and see where the upload link is happening. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to think of the following, please, as a closing thought. Sophia and I, but mostly Sophia, has spent the last 3 years putting together very, very basic ECD principle courses. All right. So what is play? What you can go through all our YouTube page, you can go through the portal. All of those are very, very basic understandings of it, and it's enough. It's enough for you to get your qualification. However, this is an important space for us this year to go into deeper understandings of what ECD is and to sort of distinguish us as a group and to challenge both Sophia and I a little bit into understanding what our practices are within the ECD and sort of keep us up to scratch with the latest that's happening. So based on that, these classes are open to ECD 4 and 5 because they are separate from the base studies that you do.
Hmm.
All right. Sophia
One
comes at it from a
question, Nick.
Montessori perspective. Sorry, give me a second. Sophia comes at it from a Montessori perspective, which I quite like the language explosion idea. I come from it with a different perspective, and both of us can contribute to your knowledge, and you can also contribute to each other in this. So come prepared to add something. Sorry, Sophia, you said something.
I see there's a question. Janani is asking,
Yeah.
how do you toilet train a child with constipation and chronic constipation problems?
Sophia, I leave that completely to you.
I think that's a health issue that the parent has to sort out.
Mhm.
According to law here in South Africa, we do not administer any form of medication to children. Unless it's really, really urgent, we will give a call, and the best we can do is maybe a teaspoon of Panado with the request that the parent comes and fetches the child. So if the child has a chronic constipation problem, it's something that needs to be worked on at home.
Yes, 100%.
You
We
need to
don't
bring it
involve
to-
ourselves with that medically because you do not know what the underlying cause of the constipation is. All right.
Yes.
So I would refer it to a doctor first, get that sorted out, and then they could fall into the system because it's a risk if you take the responsibility for sorting out this problem without the medical knowledge.
Yeah, 100%.
All right.
So I think that's a
Perfect.
wrap.
That's a wrap, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining our first class. You'll see that we'll meet again in a few weeks. In the interim, work on the portal, submit your assignments, connect with each other on the group. That's why we have these groups, so you can post things and ask for help on there, not from us, but from each other also. On it, and
Yeah.
then we will see you guys in a few weeks to do the rest of the development breakdown. Have a very beautiful evening. Sophia, thank you. I'll see you in the next class.
Thanks. Bye, everybody.
Bye.